So this is the SAfego egg incubator. Hey Homestead fans, Rick here from LaLa Farm. Have you ever purchased a product, put it to work, and come to realize it was not worth the money that you paid for it? Well, that's what we found in an incubator that we purchased as kind of an emergency backup. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Make sure to ring that notification bell. And if you like the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Hey folks, what we're going to do today is we're going to do a product review on an egg incubator that I purchased off of Amazon.com. Our main incubator, which is a HOMESTEAD 1588 model. When I was doing the calibration on that incubator recently, we had a failure of the thermostat, the warming unit element and thermostat in that incubator. We got parts for it from the manufacturer in about a week, so it wasn't a huge delay, but my problem was I had eggs that I had to get into the incubator pretty quickly because we were running one of our egg experiments. So what I did is I went on to Amazon and I ordered what is referred to on Amazon as a SAfego. It's S-A-F-E-G-O, SAfego egg incubator. All right, so this SAfego 64 egg incubator came in about 4 days. It was one of the only incubators that I could find that would have hatched at least 40 eggs that was in stock, which is the reason that we got it, and I needed it as quickly as possible. So we got it as a backup. It's always important to have a contingency plan. And so we use that for what will be our, I believe it's going to be our experiment number 3, which was an experiment doing hatch rates by temperature and the age of the egg. That should be coming out in the next week or so. We finally had the time to go back and finish that one up. So this is the incubator that we used, unfortunately, in that experiment. So we're going to go through some of the features and show you what I liked and what I didn't like about this incubator. So we start off with the, one of the things that I gauge products by is how good is the documentation and instructions. This is the instructions for the SAfego 64 egg incubator. It is a total of 4 pages. Looks like it's copied on a copy machine, and it is written, let me see, it is written, I don't know if you can see that, it is written in Chinese. So I realized very quickly that I'm going to have to make some conversions because this does not even do measurements in Fahrenheit. It's all Celsius. So very quickly after I opened the product up and began doing calibration of the heater unit to stabilize it at 99.5 degrees, I realized something wasn't right. I used a digital thermometer and I used an analog thermometer, a regular spring type thermometer, an analog thermometer, trying to get them to agree to 99.5 degrees. So if we convert 99.5 degrees to Celsius, that should be 37.5 degrees. After we went through the calibration, what I realized is to get to 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, the unit actually had to be set on 38.9 degrees. So it was about a 1.4 degrees Celsius difference between what the unit was reading and what the actual temperature inside of the unit was when I was going through the calibration, getting ready to incubate my eggs. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 2.5 degrees. So what I would have had my eggs at is about 97 degrees had I not done the calibration. So that was the first thing. Now 2.5 degrees isn't a lot, but it can impact hatch rate. And when we're doing an experiment, I want to control as many outside variables as I can. So temperature was really important to that. So we adjusted for the calibration, increased the Celsius temperature up to make sure that the Fahrenheit temperature was 99.5 degrees. So once the day came up where we placed the eggs into the incubator, the egg turner in this unit is one like I've seen online made out of wood, but it's not one that I've seen in some of the better known, more popular incubators. Let me show you what I mean. So I haven't washed this out, or haven't sanitized it or cleaned it since we finished our hatch up in this. But what this essentially is, if you look over here, this operates on essentially what is a worm gear. Now that worm gear then acts to turn the actual rollers, which have a gear on one end and just a pin on the other. Instead of coming out of the incubator in one unit, each roller bar has to be taken out when we remove the egg turner to go into the lockdown period. So on this end, they just sit in a little groove. All of this thing is made of plastic. And on this end, it also sits in a groove. And that gear right there engages with that worm wheel. The motor sits here. That's what this cable is right here. And it goes up to the power supply, which is attached to the hood of the unit. Now the one thing that really stood out with this unit, as soon as I opened it, now you look down in the bottom here, that's the reservoir for the water to maintain the humidity in here. But the one thing that stood out immediately upon opening this unit was this is made out of a thin wall plastic, similar to what you would make some storage containers out of. And it makes me wonder if this actually was actually designed in part as a storage unit, because if you look at some of these, the way they're manufactured, this is nothing more than a piece of PVC. In fact, the writing is on some of the PVC still. So, in fact, some of them still has the writing on the PVC, again, written in Chinese. Okay, so it shouldn't be no surprise that this unit is manufactured in China. It's not American made. So the first thing is to get all of these egg turner bars in place. So the water goes into the bottom, the egg turner bars go in, and they engage with that worm wheel. So for that to work, it has to be plugged into this connector. So to make that connection, it's just a plug-in connection, and that attaches the motor to the power supply, which is in here embedded with the actual control module. This is the heating element and fan, and this right here is the humidity sensor that then rolls also into this control module. So conspicuously absent on this unit was any kind of ability to attach an external humidifier to maintain a specific level of humidity. So what I ended up doing, so this is a little hole that allows some circulation. For some reason it's actually covered because the fan's underneath that, so that's not an error. It's just, so there's very little circulation that comes out of this unit. This hole I actually drilled into the unit so that I would be able to attach my external humidifier to this unit. So let's fire this thing up. So the cord plugs in here on the top, not on the side, which I thought was a little awkward. So you're using a lot of your cable length because this thing plugs in on top. So this thing turns the eggs about every 2 hours. It will go up to whatever temperature you have the unit set at. Setting it is pretty easy. Hitting the set button, and then you can move your temperature up or down. So what we did after our calibration is we realized that to get to 99.5, that we've got to be at about 38. I'm going to set it. We need to be at 38.9. So we're going to go ahead and set it. To get to 99.5 degrees, we've got to set this unit at 38.9. So we're going to hit the set button, and then we're going to increase it to 38.9, hit the set button again, and it will store that temperature. So the humidity level in this unit is set to 40%, or is at 40%, because that sensor is determining that. Now that's another thing that I found between the two humidity sensors. This is off by about 5 degrees, or about 5% in terms of the humidity level. So I had an external humidity unit attached to this, which also has an external hygrometer, so that I can read the actual humidity level on a secondary measure as well. So this is timing how long it is between egg turns. This unit will turn every 2 hours, so there's 1 minute and 29 left. And then this actually tells you which hatch day you're on, so we would have to reset this back to 0. We had a lot of eggs that did not develop, so instead of killing the incubation, we just let it run for 3 extra days to make sure that any late bloomers were allowed to hatch out. Now this is something that I thought was pretty novel. This is a CO2 sensor, or a CO2 release. So I kind of looked into this, and I don't see, frankly, how it works. It's not really described in the manual. So unless it's just a vent of sorts, the CO2 on there seems a little bit misleading. This right here is a built-in candler. So if we wanted to candle an egg, then we just turn that on, and we can sit the egg right on the unit. So I thought that was kind of a neat feature. And that's controlled right here off of this panel. All right. This would also run on a 12-volt power supply if we wanted to do that. So it's got some additional buttons here that kind of tells us what we're doing. So we've got it set on a constant temperature. This will actually adjust temperatures supposedly automatically, depending on whether you got chickens, ducks, or geese in there. We didn't do that. We just used a constant temperature with chickens is how we did it. So all of this sounds well and good. Here's the problem that I have with this unit. So I went over the pros. Here's the cons. So we're going to open this unit back up. Open this unit back up. So the main problem, the first problem that I realized, and I realized this about 2 days into the experiment, had to do with this egg turning system. So if you look at this unit, since it's just a worm wheel, all of these egg turning bars, if you will, turn in unison at the same speed, so that you make a whole, the egg turns 180 or 360 degrees. So the egg turns 360 degrees over the course of 2 hours. Essentially what it does, because this is kind of a worm wheel and you're basically turning all of these at the same time, what ultimately ends up happening is that while the egg is turning, if this is not perfectly level, or that was my theory, what happens is the egg begins to roll down these bars. Now in our case, we're on our dining room table and it's flat. It is level. So the non-levelness is actually in this unit. What was happening is, as the eggs turned, the eggs were working their way down this bar, and they would all be clumped up on one end, on that end, the worm wheel end of the incubator. So I literally, you know, against my desire to open up the unit during the incubation period, I had to open this unit up by about week 3 to be able to readjust those eggs and push them back down onto the bar. So technically they were turning until they got jammed up into that other end, and then they just kind of clustered up there. So I'd have to stop about every 3 days, realign the eggs down on these bars, and then they'd be good for another 3 days until the unit pushed them back down there. So I stuck, to try to eliminate that, I stuck some books underneath that end to lift this up a little bit, thinking, well, you know, if we can put a little bit of upward incline on this, maybe that's going to keep it from doing it. It didn't make a bit of difference. They still, the worm wheel drives those eggs to one end. So the egg turning system on this is pretty dismal. It is effective as an egg turner, but it is completely ineffective in keeping the eggs in place. Now, I guess you could probably fix that if you wanted to put like rubber bands or something around each one of these. That would keep the eggs in place, but you shouldn't have to do that. The ones in the manual egg turners that come with the Humidifier systems, it's basically just a turner, and the ones that they use in commercial, they just tilt the egg back and forth to make sure that that air pocket doesn't settle on one side or the other. So the other issue, and I'm just going to leave this hood off, that really I disliked about this unit is that despite this is the actual Amazon printout, and if you look right here, it says incubation box with a warm jacket. It saves energy and maintains temperature balance, so normal hatching in lower temperature environments is possible. That is an absolute falsehood. This is the best. There's nothing that came with this that wraps around this unit. This is the actual unit. It is a clear plastic unit. This is a hard plastic cover. There is no O-ring or anything that seals around this. There's no gasket or anything that would keep the humidity level constant, or this from the temperature remaining at a constant. So, you know, although the reader or the readout said 99 point, or the reader said whatever that temperature was, 38.9 degrees. So it maintained the temperature, but that heater had to work a lot harder, because I have to believe that some of that air, the hot air, was able to escape because there is no seal on this unit. What you have on the Humidifier is all styrofoam, and that styrofoam keeps not only the humidity in, but it keeps the temperature, and it's essentially a styrofoam cooler. So that was a big issue, and although I don't know that it was a big issue over the long term, because that heater was able to keep up. If you look, we basically did this experiment on the end of my dining room table. There's our humidity unit there, and right over there is a power head for our split level air conditioning system. And in our first night of calibration on this unit, I come out in the morning and this unit was way below where we needed it to temperature wise, because that unit will direct cold air to whatever a heat source is. So it was blowing directly down onto this. So in my Humidifier, because it's made of foam, I would not have that displacement issue with the warm air. In this one, it can't help it because there is no seal on this unit. So when we actually go into the incubation period, what you end up doing is you have to pull out these roller bars. And then it has this, which is the plastic platform that then goes in to the unit, and then the eggs go onto this. So on my Humidifier, this grid pattern is much smaller. On this one, these chicks have very small legs, and some of them were having trouble walking on this until they figured it out. So that was another, I think, a flaw, where a chicken leg could easily, or a chicken foot could easily go through this grid. And it came out of the box warped like this. Now, I don't know if that's by design or if that is, I don't know if that's by design or if it is to keep all of the eggs rolled into the middle of the unit. It may very well be for that purpose. If that's what it's for, if that's why it's constructed warped like that, then it worked perfectly well, because the eggs cannot roll out. It keeps them in the middle. But this is a minor concern. The bigger two concerns on this unit is there is absolutely zero insulation on the unit, and this egg turning system is completely ineffective as a reliable egg turning method, because the eggs just get jammed up on one end of the incubator. So that's the review on this unit. Overall, I would rate this unit to be about a 3 or 4. I certainly would not recommend purchase of this unit. I would say, you know, make sure that your Homebaiter or other, you know, good quality incubator is working long before you got to get your eggs into it. But this one, in my opinion, is just not worth the money. It is a very cheaply made, poorly designed product. All right, I hope you found this review helpful to you. You know, people invest a lot of money, a lot of time into their chickens, and they want to make sure that they have the best hatch rates possible. This is not the unit that's going to give you the best hatch rates possible. I would skip over it when you see it on Amazon as a potential in-stock incubator. Stick with the more well-named brands such as Homebaiter. There's some more expensive, larger units. The styrofoam units have worked just perfectly for us. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, if this was helpful to you, please make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like the video, and make sure to ring that notification bell to get notification of future content. Until next time, please be safe. Stay safe out there. Thank you for visiting the farm, and always remember, treat others as you would like to be treated. Take care. Be well, my friends.